Welcome to Life's Operations. I'm your host and author, David L. Perez. What you're about to hear isn't motivational content. It's not self-help. This is a training manual for navigating life as an operational environment, one that requires preparation, systems, and discipline execution. Most people fail at life not because they're weak or unintelligent, but because they're operating without frameworks. They react instead of respond. They don't see reality clearly. They have no protocols for crisis. And when pressure comes, and it always does, they collapse and flail randomly. This podcast introduces the Life Operations Manual, a 6-section training system I've developed over years of studying what separates people who survived crisis from those who are destroyed by it. Today, I'm walking you through the framework. In future episodes, we'll go deeper into each section, and I'll take your questions and hear your stories about applying these protocols in real life. Let's begin. So, the problem. Here's what I've observed. Most people lose at life the way amateur fighters lose to professionals. It's not one catastrophic mistake. It's 1,000 small failures of awareness, perception, and response. They don't understand cognitive biases, so they make predictable errors. They can't control their impulses, so they sabotage their own goals. They don't recognize manipulation patterns, so they get exploited in relationships. They don't assess risk, so they're blindsided by preventable disasters. They have no meaning structure, so when crisis hits, they collapse into millions and despair. The worst part, they think they're doing fine until suddenly they're not. Their businesses fail, their marriages end, the health collapses, the identity shatters, and they have no protocols, no training, no systems to navigate it. That's the problem this manual solves. The framework. The Life Operations Manual has 6 sections. Each builds on the previous. You cannot skip levels. Section 1, Foundations, Orientation and Awareness. This is about seeing reality as it is, not as you wish it were. Your brain has systematic biases, confirmation bias, sunk cost fallacy, narrative fallacy. These create blind spots that destroy you. This section teaches you to recognize these patterns in real life and interpret them before they can cause damage. We map emotional triggers as attack vectors because if someone knows what your triggers are, they can manipulate your behavior. The foundation is simple. You cannot navigate what you cannot see. Section 2, Internal Warfare, Self-Mastery. Before you can try to control anything external, you must control yourself. This section is about gaining command over impulse, thoughts, emotions, and your identity. Most people are occupied territory. Their impulses issue commands, and they obey without question. We train discipline over impulse through systematic protocols. We practice through containment so destructive mental loops don't run your life anymore. We build detachment without apathy, full investment and effort, zero attachment to outcome. And we reconstruct identity consciously instead of inheriting scripts from parents, trauma, or culture. Section 3, relational theaters, people, power, influence. Humans are your greatest asset and your greatest vulnerability. This section teaches you to navigate social environments without naive or paranoia. We distinguish love from attachment. We establish loyalty tiers so you're not giving unconditional trust to people who've only earned transactional engagement. We identify manipulation patterns, gaslighting, triangulation, and love bombing, and install countermeasures. We practice conflict without escalation. The goal is strategic relationships, genuine connection with trustworthy people, protective boundaries with everyone else. Section 4, work, money, position. Financial instability creates cascading failures across every other domain. This section teaches you to operate effectively in economic and institutional systems. We map hierarchies and incentives. The real power structures, not the official ones. We build reputation as currency across 5 pillars: competence, reliability, integrity, emotional, regulation, and discretion. We assess risk systematically, probability times impact, and we make the long term versus short term trade offs that separate people who build from people who stay stuck. Section 5, spiritual existential alignment. All the external competence in the world doesn't matter if you collapse internally. This section is about building meaning systems robust enough to survive catastrophic loss. We construct meaning as armor. Viktor Frankl survived Auschwitz because he had a why when others lost theirs. We reframe discipline as devotion to what you hold sacred. We impose order over chaos across all life domains. We accept responsibility as stabilizing force because avoiding responsibility creates victimhood, while claiming it creates agency. Section 6, the abyss. Failures, loss, dark knowledge. Everyone enters the abyss eventually. The business collapses. The person you can't live without dies. The betrayal shatters your trust. The diagnosis ends the life you planned. This section doesn't offer false comfort. It offers survival protocols. We walk through catastrophic failure response, betrayal processing, identity reconstruction after fracture, and radical acceptance when control is lost. This is the hardest section. It also is one of the most important because the abyss reveals who you actually are when everything else is stripped away. So, how does this all work? This is not a book you read once. It's a training system you drill repeatedly. Each section has 4 components: operational truth, the reality you need to accept, even if uncomfortable; protocols, specific procedures for specific situations, not vague advice, exact steps; drills, practices you repeat until they become automatic, like martial art karate. These build muscle memory. Competency markers, measurable indicators that you're actually ready, not just theoretically prepared. You need to check 7 out of 10 boxes before advancing to the next section. The typical progression: you read one section, you execute the drills for over 30 days, you assess against competency markers. When you're competent, you move forward. When pressure reveals gaps, you return to that section and drill it over and over again until you get it. This is not passive consumption. This is active transformation. All right, let me give you a little taste of what's in section 1. Most of your decisions are contaminated by cognitive biases you're completely unaware of. Let me give you one example: confirmation bias. You see what confirms your existing beliefs and ignore what contradicts them. Say you're in a relationship that's clearly deteriorating, right? Your friends see it, your family sees it, but you don't, because you're filtering all the evidence through. We've invested 5 years, or, but when it's good, it's really good, or they'll change. You're seeing the 10% that confirms your hope and ignoring the 90% that screams danger. The manual teaches you to run a reality calibration protocol before any major decision. 6 steps, takes 5 minutes. First, state the situation in one sentence. Second, list the assumptions embedded in that statement. Third, identify evidence that could disprove each assumption. Fourth, rate your confidence 0 to 100. Fifth, seek input from someone with opposite incentives. And then reassess after 72 hours. This simple protocol catches most major errors before you even commit to them. We also map emotional triggers. Here's the truth most people don't want to hear. If someone knows what triggers you, they can control you. If you're triggered by criticism, they can manipulate you by threatening your ego. If you're triggered by fear or rejection, they control you through withdrawal. If you're triggered by guilt, they weaponize obligation. The drill is simple. For 1 week, you log every emotional spike: anger, fear, shame, excitement. You identify the trigger. You trace the pattern across situations. Then you design circuit breakers. Delay between triggers and response: 10 seconds, 10 breaths, 24 hours. Whatever breaks the automatic reaction. Most people go their entire lives being jerked around by triggers they never examined. That ends here. Section 2 is where most people discover they're not actually in control of themselves. Every impulse is a command issued by outdated programming. Your brain says, eat the junk food, check the phone, avoid the difficult conversation. Let's react defensively when criticized. Most people just obey. They think they're free. They're really not. They're occupied territory. This manual teaches impulse interception at 4 levels. Level 1, observation. You don't try to change anything. You just track your impulses for a week. When did they arise? What triggered them? What happened when you obeyed versus resisted? Level 2, delay. You insert space between urge and action. About 10-minute rule. When the impulse hits, wait 10 minutes. If it's still there, you can act. But most impulses peak and reduce like waves if you just don't feed them immediately. Level 3, substitution. You got to map what the impulse is actually seeking. Is it seeking distraction? Is it seeking validation? Is it seeking energy? And you prepare healthier alternatives. When you want to scroll social media, you take a walk instead. When you want validation, you journal instead. Level 4, extinction. Selected impulses are simply observed and allowed to pass without action. Level 4, extinction. Selected impulses are simply observed and allowed to pass without action. You feel the urge fully, but you don't obey it. This is advanced practice, but it's where the real freedom lives. We also work on thought containment. Your mind generates about 6,000 thoughts per day. Most are repetitive, many are false, some are actively destructive. The problem is, you didn't choose most of them. They arise from conditioning, trauma, media consumption, and evolutionary programming. The drill? When a destructive thought arises, rumination about the past, catastrophic projections about the future, you catch it, label it, and either challenge it or dismiss it. Rumination dismissed. Catastrophizing, not useful. It sounds simple. It's incredibly difficult, but it's trainable. And we reconstruct identity. Most people are running on an identity script they never consciously chose. I'm not the kind of person who people like me always. These statements were inherited from parents, culture, and trauma. The protocol: you audit your identity. You finish the sentence. I am the kind of person who. 10 times. For each statement you ask, where did this come from? Is it serving me now? Is it objectively true or just a story? Then you release what doesn't serve you and deliberately construct who you're becoming. You build identity around values, capacity, and mission, not roles or circumstances that can be taken away from you. Okay. Section 3 is where most people get destroyed. because humans are both your greatest asset and your greatest vulnerability. First major distinction: love versus attachment. Most people confuse them. Attachment is a need. I can't function without you. Love is choice. I choose you, and I could survive without you. Attachment makes you exploitable, while love makes you powerful. We establish a four-tier loyalty system. Tier 1, unconditional loyalty, reserved for maybe 5 people who've proven themselves over the years. Tier 2 is conditional loyalty based on reciprocation. Tier 3 is transactional engagement with clear boundaries. Tier 4 is suspended or withdrawn trust for people who've proven unreliable. Now, most people give tier 1 loyalty to tier 2 or tier 3 relationships. That's how they get betrayed. Let me repeat that again. Most people give tier 1 loyalty to people who deserve tier 2 or tier 3 relationships. This is how they get betrayed. We also identify manipulation patterns. 8 primary tactics: guilt, induction, gaslighting, love bombing, and devotion, triangulation, playing victim, moving goalposts, silent treatment, false urgency. Each one has a specific counterscript. For example, guilt induction. After all I've done for you, your response should be, I appreciate what you've done. That doesn't obligate me to this. No justification, no argument, no defense, just clear boundaries. The manipulation section often makes people uncomfortable because they start recognizing patterns in their own relationships. This discomfort is the point. You can't fix what you won't acknowledge. And we practice conflict without escalation. 3 levels of intervention depending on severity. Level 1, soft intervention for minor issues. I noticed behavior. The effect on me was consequence. Going forward, I need specific change. Does that work for you? Acknowledgement. Level 2, firm boundary for repeated violations. I've asked for X. It hasn't changed. If it continues, I will specific consequence. You decide what happens next. Level 3, strategic withdrawal for toxic situations. This relationship isn't working for me. I'm reducing contact, ending relationship, taking space. This isn't up for discussion. I wish you well. There's no drama, no final arguments, clean exit. Section 4 addresses something most people want to ignore. Without economic security, you're vulnerable to coercion in every other domain. We start by mapping power structures and incentives. Every institution has stated values and actual reward systems. They often conflict. If you don't understand what people are actually incentivized to do, you'll be blindsided by their behavior. The drill? Creating an org chart of your workplace. Then map the real power. Who actually makes decisions regardless of title? Identify gatekeepers who control access. Note alliances, as this is your tactical map. We build reputation systematically across 5 pillars: competence, reliability, integrity, emotional regulation, and discretion. Your reputation is what people say about you when you're not in the room. It takes years to build and moments to destroy. This manual has assessment tools and damage control protocols. We assess risk using a simple matrix: probability times impact. High probability and high impact risks get addressed immediately. Low probability but catastrophic impact risks get insurance or contingency plans. Everything else gets monitored or ignored. And we make long term versus short term trade offs consciously. Most people sacrifice long term positions for short term gains. Higher salary at a toxic company versus lower salary with better learning and relationships. The manual has decision frameworks for these exact scenarios. The goal isn't wealth worship, it's strategic independence. Having enough resources that you can't be easily controlled, exploited, or eliminated. Let me repeat that again. The goal isn't wealth worship, it's strategic independence. Having enough resources that you can't be easily controlled, exploited, or eliminated. Section 6 is the darkest section because it addresses what happens when everything else fails. Everyone enters this abyss eventually. The catastrophic plan failure, the devastating betrayal, the identity fracture, the total loss of control. Most people are destroyed by that. The manual doesn't offer false comfort. It offers the survival protocols. When plans fail catastrophically, businesses collapse, career ends, marriage dissolves. There are 4 phases: shock, crisis, void, and reconstruction. Most people get stuck in the void phase. This is where identity is shattered and meaning collapses. The protocols guide you through each phase with specific actions. First 72 hours, stabilize basics. Delay all major decisions. Contain the blast radius. Don't create additional damage while you're in shock. First 30 days, triage. What actually happened? What are realistic options? Who can you trust for counsel? Not comfort, but counsel. Process emotion privately and act strategically publicly. Month 2 through 6, failure autopsy. What was your part? What was others' part? What was the circumstances? Extract the expensive education you just paid for. Then reconstruct identity around what endures and what emerges. Reposition strategically for what's possible from here. When people betray, the 5-phase protocol is acknowledge fully, prevent contamination, and develop discernment. Reconstruct trust frameworks. Make forgiveness decision when ready, not before. Forgiveness is releasing bitterness, grips on your life. It's for your liberation, not their comfort. You can forgive and never speak to them again. When identity fractures, athletes who suffer career ending injuries, parents whose child dies, professionals whose careers collapse, we stabilize core identity, inventory what remains, release what was always false, and construct identity 2.0. One that includes the fracture and is therefore more resilient. When control is lost, terminal diagnosis, natural disaster, loved one addiction, we practice radical acceptance, not approval, but acknowledgement of what is. Then we reclaim whatever tiny zone of control remains. Then meaning making, because that's the final territory of control. No one can take that from you. The abyss section ends with dark knowledge. Truth you can only learn through suffering. You're more fragile than you thought, but more resilient than you knew. Fairness is fiction. Control is mostly illusion. Suffering destroys some, forges others. The abyss has limits. If you keep moving, you reach the other side. You cannot be learned theoretically. When the abyss comes, you return to these protocols. They won't make it painless, but they'll make it survivable. Again, this cannot be learned theoretically. You got to go through it. Come back to this, and you'll survive. Section 5 is where we build the internal architecture that prevents collapse when everything external fails. Viktor Frankl survived Auschwitz. Other prisoners, stronger, healthier, better resourced, did not. The difference was meaning. Those who had a why to live for endured unspeakable suffering. Those who lost their why died, even when physically capable of survival. Meaning is not optional luxury, it's survival infrastructure. Meaning is not optional luxury, it's survival infrastructure. The manual walks you through constructing meaning at 5 levels: immediate pleasure, social validation, achievement, service, and transcendent purpose. Elite operators build meaning across multiple levels, so when one fails, others sustain them. We reframe discipline as devotion to what you hold sacred. When discipline is how you honor your values, it stops being grinding obligation and becomes practice of reverence. Morning routine isn't just habit, it's a ritual. Work isn't just employment, it's craft. Relationships aren't just connections, they're covenants. We impose order over chaos systematically. Physical space, time management, mental clarity, relationships, finances, all trend towards chaos without active maintenance. The person who creates order in their domain creates stability when everything else is turbulent. The person who creates order in their domain creates stability when there's nothing but turbulence. And we claim responsibility as stabilizing force. Most modern suffering comes from responsibility avoidance. When you avoid responsibility, you become a victim, powerless, directionless, meaningless. When you claim responsibility, you become an agent. You have power, direction, and purpose. The manual has protocols for expanding responsibility from self to dependence to community to mission. So that's it. That's the framework. 6 sections, dozens of protocols, hundreds of hours of drilling if you take this seriously. This is not a book you read once and then you shelf. It's a training system you return to under pressure. When awareness dims, you go back to section 1. When discipline slips, back to section 2. When relationships fracture, section 3. When resourcefulness fails, section 4. When meaning collapses, section 5. When the abyss opens, section 6. Your life is the field test. Reality is the instructor. And pressure reveals gaps in your training. You got that? Your life is the field test. Reality is the instructor. Pressure reveals gaps in your training. Here's what I want you to understand. I know this is not for everyone. This is not for everyone. If you're waiting for a rescue, waiting for motivation, waiting for life to feel easier, this isn't for you. This is for people who've decided they're responsible for their outcomes, who understand that competence is built through discipline, practice, who accept that reality, doesn't care about your feelings, and the person with better systems wins. In future episodes, we'll go deeper into each section. We'll take some calls. We'll hear y'all's stories about applying these protocols in real situations. We'll troubleshoot where you got stuck, where you're stuck, and so on and so forth. But before any of that, you need to decide now, are you actually ready to do this work? If yes, get the manual. Start with section 1. Execute the drills for 30 days. After you assess against the markers and you hit them, you hit the number that's there that you need to hit at least. Move on to the next section. This is a life operations. Your training begins now. Welcome to a better life and a better you. David Perez, author